You're tuned in to Ronversations, the podcast where real talk meets real change straight from the heart of Santa Fe. I'm your host, Ronald S. Trujillo, candidate for mayor in the 2025 Santa Fe election. Ronversations dives into the issues that matter most to our community, from public safety to affordable housing, local jobs to transparent government, and everything in between. No scripts, no spin, just honest dialogue and bold ideas for a resilient Santa Fe. This is a space for open conversation, real solutions, and a shared vision for our city's future. Glad you're here. Let's talk. Buenos dias, Santa Fe, and welcome to Ronversations, Santa Fe Unfiltered, episode number 2. Today, I'm honored to have my good friend, Freddie Lopez here with me. So, Freddie, I'm just going to let you go into tell us who you are, what you do here in Santa Fe, and we'll take it from there after that.
Sounds good, and I'm honored to be here, Ronnie, and it's such an honor to be here. My name is Freddie Lopez, and I am a raised New Mexican and a Santa Fecino here in Santa Fe. I've been living here since since I was born, 3 days after I was brought here from Philadelphia with my folks. Been raised here all my life since 2001, and what I've basically done in my career is that I have been a salesman at my dad's art gallery, Fred Lopez at Spanish Colonial Tin Works, and I've worked in the legislature as I first got started in the House where you actually were this year. Yes,
That's right.
as an attendant and Sergeant Arms.
We both ran into each other in the hallways.
Yes, always. We would always run into each other. I always saw this guy. But after that, it was around after 2023. I ended up becoming the administrative assistant to Senator Crystal Brantley. At that time, she was Crystal Diamond, but now she's Crystal Brantley. And prior to that, as well, I was the campaign manager to Audrey Trujillo. She was a candidate who ran for Secretary of State back in 2022. And then in 2024, I was the campaign manager for Audrey Trujillo when she ran for State Senate District 9, which is up in Corrales. And since then, I've just been someone who's really cared about the city, And I'm currently the first vice chair of the Republican Party of Santa Fe County. And the reason why I care so much about my city is because I'm not about party line. I have my own views, but I care about the city as much as anyone. This is my home. I'm a proud alumni from the Santa Fe Community College. All my friends are here. All my family is here. And this is a city that I am proud to call home, and I'm very excited to really talk about the issues in depth about Santa Fe and what I truly care about, and just go from there for sure.
Well, that's good. Freddie, and that's the thing that we can have that discussion. You're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and we may not see eye to eye on a lot of things at the federal level. We're going to have different points of view on a lot of issues, but what we're here discussing today, and what I want to keep this campaign about, is about Santa Fe and the issues that pertain to the people who live here, who call Santa Fe home. Those are the issues that I want to talk to you. And I'm so glad that me and you, even though we do have opposite views on certain issues, we're friends. We've been friends for many years, and we'll continue to be friends. And that's the whole thing. And so it's about collaboration. One thing I've been saying in this campaign, we're going to be collaborating. We want to collaborate with the county. We want to collaborate with the state. We want to collaborate with the schools. But again, too, I want to collaborate with everyone, because as mayor, it's not, of course, everybody knows here in Santa Fe, the mayor's race is nonpartisan. And it's not about Democrat, Republican, Independent. I said, whoever wins, you're the mayor for Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and even if you're not affiliated with any political, you are the mayor for everyone. So that's the great thing. So Freddie, let me ask you this first. So now that you were at the legislature, tell me what you were doing at the legislature, because I was there as well.
Yes, what I was doing, I was the administrative assistant to Senator Crystal Brantley, and what I would essentially do for his administrative work, I would take office phone calls, I would answer and reply to emails, I will make sure to facilitate meetings between her and constituents, and that was essentially my job, is to basically be her right-hand man, and I am deeply honored for her. I think she's a great senator and, a great mentor as well. She is very knowledgeable on the issues, and I'm still very honored that she picked me to be her administrative assistant. So I would just basically be her right-hand man. Whatever she needed done, I would make sure to get it done, administrative work. And what I learned a lot from working at the legislature is just how the process works, how our government works. I always tell everyone, if you really want to see what government is like, work at the legislature, even if it's just for one session, one legislative session, whether it's 30-day or 60-day, you will see very quickly how government works, how government functions. You see a lot of good things come out, but at the same time, you also see a lot of bad come out. And what I've truly learned is that, like there's a lot of issues at play here. There's a lot of issues with the government, and you see a lot of partisanship. And that's the difference that I've seen between the legislature and local politics. There's a heavy duty partisanship. And I don't believe anyone is in favor of that at all because we all care about New Mexico. If we have the same goals, we can work together.
Exactly,
We can work
exactly.
together.
That's the thing that I want. Working together. One of the things you were discussing about. So your father does the tin work and all that, right?
Yes.
So an artist, and you as well, I'm sure, have done a lot of the tin work. How are there any issues that the city isn't doing? That like does your father deal with like the Spanish market, the different markets?
Yes.
Are there any obstacles that have arisen that haven't allowed for like maybe permitting and all that during these events? Because this is a thing that I want to get in depth with is what's working at the city, what's not working in the city, and how we fix if it's not working.
Well, I could tell you this right now is like my dad has been involved with the Spanish market and the art community for many, many years, and she has a great relationship with them. And from what I've seen from many artists and even just small businesses is just the massive amounts of red tape just to get through it. For an example, I mean, it's like, just take an example, like we have a very high minimum wage here in Santa Fe, which I am in favor for, but when it comes to small businesses, it's very damaging for small businesses, very damaging. And the way I see it, it's like we want to make sure everyone is paid a fair and equitable wage, but not at the cost of the business. And when it comes to many small businesses, it's also very, very, very expensive. A lot of these businesses are grandfathered in and have been there for many, many years, but many of them are struggling to keep afloat. I think especially after COVID, we really saw our small business community really take a hit, and some of these businesses are not coming back. And, I believe there needs to be a fair wage, but that has to be determined down to the small business. And as far as like taxes and for the city of Santa Fe, it's like we are super, super like just like we're not a very business friendly city. We're really not. It's like all these small businesses that have been around for years, they're struggling to keep afloat. It's like we want to make sure that businesses, are able to pay their employees well, but at the same time, not at the expense of them. And what I've seen is just like, I'll give you one other example. Like, I know I have a lot of friends in the lowrider communities, and they've even told me like sometimes it's hard to get a permit, and I don't know all the specifics of that, but they've told me like sometimes it's hard to just put out a lowrider show. Like years ago, it'd be so easy, so easy to do it. But many of them have faced a lot of issues along the way in terms of like, being able to hold like a simple event. And it seems to me like there might be some type of bias within the city in terms of like, oh, well, we're going to accommodate a more established business instead of a business that is just trying to come up, just trying to be successful. And it's like my question to you is like how do we like address that?
Well, in dealing with that, I think the city, of course, has to be business friendly. We have to have those discussions with other organizations, other small businesses, the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
They promote. You even have the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well. Like I said, the word I've mentioned many times, collaboration. We need to bring these people to the table and have those discussions on what's hurting small businesses. How the city, how the state, how the county. Like I said, we're all in that little realm of a circle. I've always said the city, we're in the county's in the state. So we all need to come down. We need to talk and have those discussions on how we can. Like I said, you're saying there's a lot of red tape, and that's not something new. We had that those issues when I was on the council as well with permitting and all that. It just seems as our city grows, more issues arise, and unfortunately, the permitting process is very, very difficult. and so there's got to be a way that we streamline it to make it more easier. I know that they've tried to do it online, but not everything works that way. Sometimes you got to have that one-on-one interaction with the people at City Hall so they know what your issues are. It's not so easy just writing it on the computer or talking to a voicemail or a robot.
Absolutely, yes. And another thing I've also noticed is that there seems to be some kind of disconnect within our government, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this, like our auditing process for the city. We have been so late on our reports when it comes to the city's audits, and yet you have one side of the aisle that says, "Oh, we are completely up to date on audits. We are making sure that we are timely in a fashion when we're submitting it." Then you have another side that says we are not having we are not going by the deadline. We are not being fair and accurate with everything. So it's like I believe that is a main issue because you have a clear disconnect, and I believe that we need to be transparent.
Transparent and accountability.
Yes.
And one thing that I've said, when I get into the mayor's office, the first month is going to be a forensic audit. We're going to do a forensic audit of the entire city because we want to find out what's working and what's not working. And if it's working, we want to make it better. But if it's not working, then we need to figure out what's going on. So, that's one of the first things. So Freddie, one of the things like what I want to ask you too is what do you think's working here in the city? What issues are, do you have with the city of Santa Fe? Be it whatever you want to talk about.
Well, what I love so much about the city is that it's a melting pot. That's what I love so much about the city and how diverse we are because we have a combination of the Anglo culture, we have a combination of the Hispanic culture and the Native culture. It's very unique. There's a reason why they call us a city different, and that's what I love so much. Whether it's the fiestas, whether it's the Spanish market, the Indian market. Like there are very few places where they have a market, with many Hispanic artists, and even a market where it's many Native artists. Like to me, that is just so special about our city, and it's a city that is so based on faith. There's a reason why we're
Santa Fe.
the city of Holy Faith, yes.
Holy Faith.
The city of Holy Faith, it's like, and we have such unique history and culture, whether it's the San Miguel Mission, the St. Francis Cathedral, the Loretto Chapel, and the Miraculous Staircase,
That's such a cool story on how it,
Yes.
the story about, how the staircase was built and all that. So if you haven't heard it, look it up. It's a great story.
Absolutely. It's such an amazing story that even when I tell it, it's like, holy cow. Yes. And that's what I love about the city. But what I really do not like is that we have many individuals on both sides of the aisles that are like, they don't truly understand our history and they truly do not know our culture and our traditions and, respecting that, knowing that we've always been diverse and history is not all black and white, but you have one side of the aisle that claim to want to move the city forward, but yet they're wanting to say that, oh, our traditions are inherently bigoted, or they're inherently racist, or they're inherently oppressive. And it's like, no, it is not. You know what I mean? It's like when you look at history, there's not a clear good guy and a bad guy. I mean, it's like the Spanish, they brought a lot of the cultures, whether it's, our Catholics or some of our traditions like that, and so did the natives too. Yeah, they brought that over too. But, it seems like you have someone that's like trying to divide into where, oh, you're Hispanic, so you're my enemy. Or if you're Native, you're my enemy. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Not how I grew up.
And I'm mestizo.
Mhm.
So, I'm Spanish and Native American. So yeah, like you're talking about is the divisiveness that has happened here in Santa Fe over these last few years. And it technically, you look at the Soldiers Monument being toppled. You see the statue of Don Diego de Vargas, which was removed from Cathedral Park.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's some issues that are it's heartbreaking for me because I portrayed the Vargas in 1994 for the Santa Fe Fiestas. I'm very very proud to say that I was one of the chosen men that have portrayed that honorable role. And one thing that really always gets to me too is when me and Amber go to mass and we hear it's called O Conquistadora, Patrona Reina Nuestra. It's the prayer to La Conquistadora. But over the past few years, unfortunately, La Conquistadora, they don't want to say that name. For some reason, it's become taboo, and I personally don't like that. So every time we're at mass, and when that prayer is said at the end of mass, me and Amber are there, loud and proud. Oh, conquistadora, patrona reina nuestra, because that's how we were brought up. Referring to her as, she is la conquistadora, and whether you want to think about conquest, conquer, what we always say is La Conquistadora, she conquered our hearts. And that's what makes us Santa Vecinos, so unique. Like you said, there's no other place in the world like Santa Fe,
Absolutely.
where so many cultures come. Santa Fe is just a welcoming town.
Absolutely. It is so welcoming. I'm half Puerto Rican and I'm half African American, and I was raised in a Hispanic family. I am like, I'm so embedded in this culture. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like my family, the Lopez family under Santa Fe, goes back generations. On my mom's side, the Montoya side goes back generations. I mean, my cousin Antonio Joseph was one of the founders of Taos.
Wow.
Yes, he was one of the founders of Taos, and he was a delegate to the state convention who helped our state become a state.
Yeah. See, like with me, I mean, we can trace our relatives back to when they came Otoñate, and then back to when they came, with the Vargas again.
Yes.
So that's what's so unique, and your background is incredible. That you just said, Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes, I know, and it's like that. It's like you can only find that here in like places like Santa Fe, where it's like you have, I have so many friends that are full Hispanic or full Native or half or things like that, but we still accept each other as Santa Vecinos.
Exactly, and that's what's great about us having this conversation right now.
Yes.
We've been friends all these years. We'll continue to be friends. We may have, like you said, opposite views on some issues, but we're still friends.
Absolutely, and that's the way it goes to be. And what I really disagree with is the fact that, well, if you vote a certain way, you're inherently evil or you're doing an injustice. I don't like that either. Like, we can come to the table, like I said earlier in this interview, is that if we have the same goals, because if we don't have the same goals, technically speaking, we're at war, to be honest with you. But if we have the same goals, because we can have an argument at the dinner table on policies and issues, but then after that, we go right back to eating dinner like it was nothing.
Yeah.
That's no longer around. It's like now it's like, oh, if you are a Republican or if you are a Democrat, you are this and that. I'm like, that's not the way to be.
It's unfortunate, that's happened, in our country over all these years. And one of the things and I always remember it was back in 1980s. You probably don't remember Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Yes.
You're too young on that.
Yeah.
But there was a time when Ronald Reagan was the president. Ronald Reagan was passing the budget, but they didn't know if he's going to have enough, people in Congress to pass it because he was short some votes. But he was able, and I remember him and Tip O'Neill talking, and it was on television, and Tip O'Neill saying, Mr. President, we're going to beat you at this. We're going to, this. And Tip O'Neill, in my opinion, a great man. Ronald Reagan, great man, great president as well. Well, what happened was, they didn't. Ronald Reagan was able to get those Democrats to come over, and he passed his budget. And then the next thing you see Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan talking on the phone. Mr. President, you won this, and we're going to work together. We're going to work together, and we're going to make the United States a great, a good place and better. These are the things that we don't see no more. We don't see that collaboration.
We don't see that bipartisanship anymore. When you want to make it specific to Santa Fe, one of the issues that I'm seeing is that not just we're talking about with the Soldiers Monument and the disrespect that we're seeing to our cultures, but public safety. There was a time in Santa Fe where it was so safe, you could leave your doors unlocked. You could walk out and not have to be afraid of anything. But now it's like you go to some of these parks, where our kids are supposed to be at play, and sometimes you'll find a needle on the ground. Or, you walk out, look at Cerrillos Road with Pete's Place and seeing all the chaos happening there and seeing all of the the devastation and destruction that we're seeing. It's like, and here's the thing, like, we need to figure out an issue to where, we can be able to rehabilitate those who in need of help, but at the same time incarcerate those who are committing crimes and are putting the community in danger. It's not a one size that fits
I
all.
agree with that, and I'm very compassionate towards the homeless and all that. Me and Amber and our kids used to work at the homeless shelter, many years ago. We were a core team. Amber was one of the core team members, and we would set up Pete's place, before the homeless would come in, and we'd greet them, and we'd sit down, share a meal. So I'm very compassionate towards the homeless, but again, too, as you've said, if there is crime, if there are bad things happening, those people, definitely, need to be held accountable for it.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's like that is an issue that is becoming so extensive, especially on Cerritos Road. Like whenever I drive on Cerritos Road, it's like you see nothing but homeless people on the streets, and it breaks my heart to see that. But at the same time, it's like, there are people out there who genuinely need a place to stay, but there are also people out there who genuinely need mental help.
Exactly.
There are people that-
And we've again think we got to collaborate with the state, county, how we help these people.
Yes.
So Freddie, we're running a little short on time, but is there anything you would like to end with, any other issue, or just something you'd like to say to the audience out there?
Well, the one thing I'll just send it like this is like, let's work together, but at the same time, let's stand up for what is right, because we may disagree on certain issues, but we need to stand up for what is right, and that's our values as Santa Feans, and that's preserving our history and our culture and our traditions, but also collaborating as a family, getting together. It doesn't matter who you are or which political aisle you identify as, but let's stand up for our convictions, stand up for our values, but at the same time, let's work together to keep Santa Fe, the city, different and make it prosper for my generation and the generation the next, because we're the future and we need to collaborate more on that. So all I have to say is like, let's just work together to keep Santa Fe, the city, different and keep Santa Fe, the city of Holy Faith, where we can all get together and it can be prosperous for every single generation.
Well, on that note, I want to thank everybody out there. Freddie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, sir.
And adios, Santa Fe.